I'm Jim Lara. On the NewsHour tonight, the news of this Friday, including an end-of-the-month update on the financial and economic crisis. Then the presidential candidates' pitches with 4 days left in the campaign. A look at the changing South with North Carolina and Georgia in play this year. And the analysis of Mark Shields and David Brooks. Plus, a report from Montana on climate change and trout fishing.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer is provided by...
The world is changing, and how we use energy today cannot be how we'll use it tomorrow. There is no one solution. It's not simply more oil, more renewables, or being more efficient. It's all of it. Our way of life depends on developing all forms of energy and to use less of it. It's time to put our differences aside. Will you be part of the solution? Chevron, human energy.
Pacific Life. Vestas.
And the National Science Foundation, supporting education and research across all fields of science and engineering.
And with the ongoing support of these institutions and foundations. And
this program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Stock markets today finished a great week and a terrible month. They rallied across Asia and Europe, and Wall Street followed suit. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 144 points to close at 93.25. The NASDAQ rose 22 points to close near 1721. Both indexes were up 11% for the week. Overall, the Dow had its best week since 1974 and its worst month since 1987. The latest economic data underscored today that consumers have cut back. The Commerce Department reported consumer spending dropped 0.3% in September, the most since 2004. And the Labor Department found wages and benefits rose only modestly in the third quarter, keeping inflation in check. A leading House Democrat warned banks today not to use federal rescue funds to pay dividends. Congressman Barney Frank chairs the House Financial Services Committee. He said rescue money is for lending, and he warned banks any use of these funds for any purpose other than lending is a violation of the terms of the Act. The presidential candidates headed into the final weekend of the campaign today. Democrat Barack Obama was back where it all started in Iowa. He charged Republican John McCain has abandoned the high road. McCain stayed in Ohio for a second day. He charged Obama is from the liberal left lane of politics. We'll have more on the campaign later in the program tonight. Thousands of refugees tried to head home across eastern Congo today. The reverse migration came as a tense ceasefire held between rebel forces and the Congolese government. We have a report from Martin Geisler of Independent Television News.
It is a crisis that's threatening to become a catastrophe. Carrying what they can, thousands of Congolese are on the move tonight, fleeing a conflict that's spread across the region. But there's nowhere safe for them to go. Thousands more have set up camp in Goma, trapped and terrified in a city surrounded by rebels and patrolled by squads of drunk soldiers said to be raping and killing at will.
The population is sort of confusion, women, children, running up and down the streets here, trying to get out of here.
The rebel forces called a ceasefire to let the people return to their rural homes. But when they started the journey, some claimed they were shot at. Now they're heading back to a city already full to bursting, with dwindling supplies of shelter, food and water. The lucky ones are too young to know what's happening. Many of the international aid agencies have pulled their staff out of the country, so there's little chance of help arriving soon. The rebels are camped 9 miles outside Goma. Tonight, the ceasefire there seems to be holding, but there have been reports of refugee camps in Rutshuru, 50 miles north of the city, being looted and burned to the ground, forcing tens of thousands who were living there to flee into the bush.
We are in a situation where essentially we are at a hair trigger, that that any incident ultimately could trigger a much larger problem.
This complex conflict has its roots in the Rwandan genocide of 1994. The rebel leader, Laurent Nkunda, is an ethnic Tutsi. He says he's fighting to protect his tribespeople from Hutu militias in the region and the government forces he claims are backing them. No one here needs to be reminded of the tensions this conflict is stirring up or the catastrophic consequences an escalation in the violence could produce.
U.S. and UN envoys flew into Goma today, and the European Union decided against deploying military forces to the conflict zone. Member states will focus on diplomacy and humanitarian aid instead. Intelligence officials in Pakistan today reported U.S. missile attacks on 2 villages. They said 27 people were killed, including a mid-level al-Qaeda leader and other foreign fighters. The targets were in 2 regions along Pakistan's border with Afghanistan. The U.S. has launched at least 17 missile attacks there since mid-August. The man who led the U.S. military surge in Iraq formally took control of Central Command today. Army General David Petraeus will now oversee military operations throughout the Middle East. Petraeus was installed at a ceremony at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. He told the audience the way ahead will be difficult. Petraeus takes his post as American deaths in Afghanistan have outpaced those in Iraq. In October, 15 U.S. troops were killed in Afghanistan. At least 13 Americans died in Iraq. Both numbers were down from September. Studs Terkel, the author and radio broadcaster, died at his home in Chicago today. His radio work ranged from soap operas to news to sports and earned him a vast and loyal audience. Terkel wrote a series of oral history books covering the Great Depression and race relations, among other subjects. And in 1985, he won a Pulitzer Prize for his remembrances of World War II in the book The Good War. Studs Terkel was 96 years old, and we'll have more on him at the end of the program tonight. And that's it for the news summary tonight. Now, October economics, 4 more days, changes in the South, Shields and Brooks, and trout fishing in Montana. Jeffrey Brown oversees the economic week and month that were.
It was, we can say on this Halloween, a very scary month. But on Wall Street, at least, it ended on a positive note. Our update tonight comes from David Wessel, economics editor of the Wall Street Journal. Well, the worst month in 21 years, the best week in 34 years. David, can you offer any helpful perspective for us tonight?
Well, I don't think you want to take too much comfort in what happened to the stock market. At a time like this, it's a little bit like the car is skidding on the ice, and you don't want to look at the speedometer too closely because that's not where the problem is. But it was good news, as you point out. The market had a great week, up 11% this week, although for the month it was an awful month, down 14%. And the question really is this the bottom? And the answer is we don't know. All bottoms look like this, but not every market that looks like this is in fact a bottom.
One thing that continues to rattle people, I think, is the volatility.
Right.
Many of us here have decided that maybe it's not worth even looking at the Dow number until 355, 5 minutes before the close, because of the huge swings. Do you sense that we just have to get used to that now?
Well, I think for the time being, I think it reflects a couple of things. One is the kind of panic that's out there where people are not being completely rational. Markets do tend to overshoot at times like this. But secondly, the stock market is only one market, and the other markets, the credit markets, the bond markets, the currency markets, they're all behaving very strangely too. So they're giving us kind of misleading readings or uncertain readings, and at times of uncertainty and panic, you know, traders will do weird things at 5 of 4 on Halloween.
Now, there was a lot of bad news this week, the consumer spending, consumer confidence. But what about any good news to report at the end of the week? For example, you just mentioned the credit markets. There were some signs of loosening. What else was out there this week?
Right. The important interest rates that we didn't used to pay any attention to a few months ago, like the LIBOR, the London Interbank Offered Rate, has come down. That's a sign that the credit markets may be starting to thaw a little bit. That's good. Oil prices are way down 33% in the month of October. That's almost like a tax cut for American consumers, the people who are heating their houses and driving their cars with oil. That's a plus. And One thing we don't seem to have to worry about right now is inflation. You know, just a few months ago, the fear was the Fed wouldn't be able to help us out of this mess because they were preoccupied with inflation. Well, that fear seems to have completely evaporated.
Now, there were also many more rumblings this week about what the government has or perhaps has not accomplished yet with all of its attempts at dealing with this. There are still a lot of questions out there about the $700 billion rescue plan, right?
Right. Well, there are a lot of questions about the entire federal rescue here. We've done the Fed has done an extraordinary number of things. As you point out, the Congress has appropriated $700 billion. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the mortgage giants, have been taken over by the government. Yet we don't seem to be getting well yet, and I think that's a cause for great concern. The question is whether the medicine is going to take hold soon or whether we need more medicine. With the $700 billion, there's a lot of argument about how best to spend it, and is it being spent well? As you know, there's been a big fight about whether giving money to the banks is serving a desired purpose. If they sit on the money, use it to pay dividends, use it to buy other banks, that doesn't help lending. So some people want to force them to do lending. And so until things get better, there's going to be a lot of second guessing.
Still a lot of talk, too, about a coming proposed plan for housing. And Fed Chairman Bernanke was talking about the housing market today. And also a lot more talk this week, I noticed, about a potential stimulus plan, right?
Right. I think we'll see action on both fronts. On the housing front, the government, whether it's the Bush administration or the next president, plus some of the banks, are going to move to deal with the fact that 1 in 5 Americans with a mortgage has a mortgage that's greater than the value of the house. And that's not a very stable situation. Those people have nothing to lose by walking away from their houses. In order to reduce foreclosures, both banks, today it was JP Morgan Chase, and the government is likely to help these people cut a new mortgage deal. On the stimulus front, well, when all else fails, the economic textbooks tell us the government should spend some money, fiscal stimulus, and there seemed to be a lot of support for that now. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke has endorsed it. Marty Feldstein, who was a Reagan advisor, has endorsed it. Senator Obama has endorsed it, and the Democrats in Congress are not waiting for the inauguration to start moving legislation. The only question is, what will it be? How big will it be? And will it be designed to help the economy in the near term, or will it be a list of pet projects that by the time the money's spent will be well beyond this episode? And we'll just have to wait and see.
All right. David Wessel of the Wall Street Journal, one of the many people who helped us get through this very strange month. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Now, today in the presidential race, with just 4 days to go, Ray Suarez has our campaign report.
John McCain told supporters in Hanoverton, Ohio this morning that they were the key to his chances of winning next Tuesday.
My friends, it's great to be back. It's great to spend time here in the heartland of America. And again, I want to tell you, the enthusiasm and the momentum that I feel here in Ohio is going to carry us to victory here in Ohio and throughout this country. This kind of enthusiasm.
McCain also kept up his attacks on Barack Obama's tax plan.
You know, he's made a lot of promises. First, he said people making less than $250,000 would benefit. Then this weekend, he announced that in an ad, if your family making less than $200,000, you'll benefit. This week, the gift that keeps on giving, Senator Biden said tax relief should only go to middle-class people making under $150,000. Get a glimpse of where we're going, my friends? It's fascinating how the liberal left's definition of rich has a way of creeping down.
McCain then took aim at Democrats in general for what he described as attempts by the party to scare voters about McCain's plans for Social Security and Medicare. At the same time, the Arizona senator alleged Democrats in Congress were looking to tax retirement contributions.
Thanks to Speaker Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barney Frank, we know this Democrat Congress, we know it's planning all sorts of new taxes. This week, we're hearing they want to tax your 401k contributions. This is a time when we need to encourage more investing, not tax it. We need to protect people's retirement, not endanger it. Now here's what's going on. It's Halloween. So what do the Democrats do? Every 4 years, they run out and they try to scare seniors by saying that Republicans are going to take away their Social Security or we're going to take away Medicare. They do it every 4 years. And my friends, our Americans have wised up. I'm going to protect Social Security, I'm going to protect Medicare, and I'm not going to let this Congress tax away your retirement savings.
McCain was joined at the Ohio rally by former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani and South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Graham took the tax charge against the Democrats a step further.
Our opponent in the next 4 years, Pelosi, Reid, Obama, the tax trifecta from hell. Don't let it happen.
The Republican ticket's number 2, Governor Sarah Palin, campaigned today in Pennsylvania, where she too went after the Democrats as a party.
Pennsylvania, the far left wing of the Democrat Party is preparing to take over the entire federal government. Now, with Democrats in control of the House and the Senate, heaven forbid the White House, and this isn't the mainstream policy, mainstream thinking in the Democrat Party, it is far left. According to their own stated plans, one of the first things that's going to go, if they get to control, monopolize power in D.C., will be 1/4 of our defense budget. That's one of the first things on the chopping block. Now, John and I, we have a better idea. Let's not retreat from wars that are almost won. Let's not gut the defense budget in a time of multiple conflicts and obvious dangers. And let's not entrust all the powers of the federal government to the one-party rule of Obama, Pelosi, and Reid.
Barack Obama, meanwhile, campaigned in Des Moines, Iowa, where his victory in January's caucuses spurred the Democrats' run to the nomination. That fact was not lost on Obama today.
This campaign began here. You helped launch this campaign. So the people of Iowa, I will always be grateful to all of you.
The senator bemoaned what he said were the slash-and-burn politics of the McCain campaign, tactics Obama said the Republican once opposed.
You know, a couple of elections ago, there was a presidential candidate who decried this kind of politics and condemned these kind of tactics. And I admired him for it. He said, "I will not take the low road to the highest office in the land." Those words were spoken 8 years ago by my opponent, John McCain. But the high road didn't lead him to the White House then, so this time he decided to take a different route. I know campaigns are tough because we've got real differences about big issues. We care passionately about this country's future. Make no mistake, we will respond swiftly and forcefully with the truth to whatever falsehoods they throw our way in these last 4 days. The stakes are too high to do anything less.
One issue Obama said he had to set the record straight on was taxes.
Let me just see a show of hands. How many people make less than $250,000 a year? Raise your hand. All right, now, I want you to be very clear here. Here are the facts. There was another report in the New York Times this morning that laid out the fact that I give much more relief to middle-income people, and also that I will not raise taxes for anybody making under $250,000 a year. Not your capital gains tax, not your payroll tax, not your income tax, no taxes. The middle class doesn't need a tax hike. I want to give you a tax cut. So don't be confused by what John McCain says. My tax rates will be lower than they were under Ronald Reagan.
Obama's running mate, Joe Biden, began the day with a rally at his alma mater, the University of Delaware, where he sought to tie McCain to the Bush administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bush legacy, the one that John McCain wants to continue, is an America where we're divided from each other, a nation divided from the world. But ladies and gentlemen, an opportunity missed is not an opportunity lost, not yet. Not if we recognize the urgency of the moment, not if we have the courage to reject the course that we're on, which has clearly failed, and not if we'll embrace the most enduring American belief, one that was instilled in me here at this great university. And that is, we do not have to accept things the way they are. We can change them.
Biden will campaign tomorrow in Indiana and Ohio. Obama makes stops in Nevada, Colorado, and Missouri. The Republican ticket heads to a pair of southern states, McCain to Virginia, Palin to Florida.
And now more on the South and the shifting political map there. Judy Woodruff has that story.
Some reliably Republican stalwarts have turned into real battlegrounds this year, in particular Virginia, North Carolina, and even Georgia. The presidential contest is having an impact on state races, too. One example, North Carolina, where the Republican incumbent U.S. Senator Elizabeth Dole faces a serious challenge from Democrat Kay Hagan. The tenor of that campaign can be seen in one of Dole's TV ads and in Hagan's response.
I'm Elizabeth Dole, and I approved this message.
A leader of the Godless Americans PAC recently held a secret fundraiser in Kay Hagan's honor.
There is no God to rely on. There was no Jesus.
Well, taking under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, you're down with that.
We're down with that.
In God we trust, you're going to whip that off the money?
Yeah, we would.
Godless Americans and Kay Hagan. She hid from cameras, took godless money. What did Hagan promise in return?
There is no God.
I'm Kay Hagan, and Elizabeth Dole's attacks on my Christian faith are offensive. She even faked my voice in her TV ad to make you think I don't believe in God. Well, I believe in God. I taught Sunday school. My faith guides my life, and Senator Dole knows it. Sure, politics is a tough business, but I approve this message because my campaign is about creating jobs and fixing our economy, not bearing false witness against fellow Christians.
For more on these southern states in play, we turn to Rob Christensen, political reporter for the Raleigh News and Observer and author of the book, The Paradox of Tar Heel Politics, and Jim Galloway, political columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Thank you both for being with us. And Rob Christensen, to you first, what do those two ads say about the state of the Senate race in your state?
Well, it's obviously a Hail Mary pass by Senator Dole. She would not have run such a risky ad if she wasn't in some trouble in this state. It is an ad that designed to get the base out, vote out for Republicans, but it's very risky because Elizabeth Dole's also had a lot of support from suburban women, for example. And so this has been, she risks losing the so-called Southern Living magazine voters who are not particularly ideological on this because it was so tough.
Well, she started out not only as the incumbent, but the very, very well-known incumbent. What happened?
Well, there's a couple things, and you're exactly right, Judy. In fact, most of the big-name Democrats in the state passed on the race because they saw a year ago they thought Elizabeth Dole was invulnerable. A couple things to think about. Elizabeth Dole, when she ran in 2002, she was recruited by the White House. President Bush campaigned with her 5 times in North Carolina, more than any other candidate in the country, except for his brother Jeb Bush in Florida. And now, of course, obviously, Bush's numbers have collapsed. And so the race in 2002 was right after 9/11. National security was the issue. This time, it's the economy, and the economy is not doing well here.
Let me quickly turn you then to the presidential contest in North Carolina, where Senator Obama is ahead by a few points as an average of a number of the polls we've been looking at. Help us understand what's going on at that level.
Well, there's a couple things going on here, Judy. One is the economy. And not only are we shedding jobs in the traditional old economy, like textiles and furniture, but even the new economy is hurting. Look at Wachovia Bank, the big Charlotte bank, had just been taken over by Wells Fargo. And then you have the Iraq War. Even though North Carolina has a lot of military bases, the war has lost popularity here as elsewhere. The demographics are changing. North Carolina is a very fast-growing Sunbelt state. We've had millions of new voters move into the state over the last 20 years. And while a lot of them are Republicans and independents, they are you might call them Starbuck Republicans. They're more moderate on social issues. They're more open to, they're not the old-style Jesse Helms Republicans that we're so used to in North Carolina, and they're more open to an Obama. And the other thing to look at here in North Carolina is that usually Democratic primaries or Republican primaries either don't matter in North Carolina because they're held in May. Usually the nomination's all sewed up by then. Not this time. This time, in fact, what happened was that North Carolina mattered, and Obama had a tremendous effort here, and of course beat Hillary Clinton here. He just transitioned in May right into the general election. He had a huge political organization sitting here, and he has used that. McCain people were very slow to combat this. They didn't really take the Obama effort here seriously until after Labor Day, and they've been playing catch-up ever since.
Well, let's move a few miles south, 2 states down, to Georgia and to Jim Galloway. Jim, in your state, Senator McCain is up, but only by a few points. Again, averaging the polls, you've got a third-party candidate. Give us the lay of the land there.
Well, yeah, Judy, that's exactly right. And the polls shift according as the voter pool, the perceptions of the voter pool changes. If you're only talking likely voters, then McCain pulls ahead, and he's just edging out 50%. But if you start to conceive of a voter pool that we haven't seen before, one with much heavier black turnout, with many more young people, then McCain starts to sink rapidly. And there are many people here who think that the race will turn on two things. One is the performance of Bob Barr, the Libertarian presidential candidate, who's a former Georgia congressman. Served 4 terms here and left quite popular, and the influx of new voters.
Now, what do you mean? Well, let me ask you about those new voters, because Georgia has not gone Republican in the presidential contest since 1992. What's changed?
Well, what's changed is as with North Carolina.
I'm sorry, has not gone Democratic. I misspoke.
Exactly. I mean, we last went Democratic in 1992 with Bill Clinton's first election, and ever since then we've been just highly reliable, a reliable Republican territory, so reliable that you'll recall that in right before Labor Day, Barack Obama dropped his ads here, withdrew some of his paid staff. McCain has never had a headquarters in Georgia. He was so confident of Georgia. He still doesn't. He was planning to piggyback off U.S. Senator Saxby Chambliss, off that campaign. And what's happened is, quite frankly, the economy and Barack Obama. Barack Obama has just brought out a surge of voters that we just have not seen. Georgia has one of the earlier voting periods in the nation, 45 days. We started 45 days before this last Tuesday. We started in September voting, and consistently, African Americans have made up 35% plus of the turnout. And usually in the last 2 cycles, it's been right at 24%.
And as you just mentioned, the Republican incumbent, Senator Saxby Chambliss, facing a tough challenge from the Democrat, Jim Martin.
This wasn't supposed to happen at all. The DSCC just really had to persuade Martin to enter the race this last spring. They had to put some hard pressure on him, and he had to go through a Democratic primary runoff and had no money as of early August. So his campaign really wasn't going anywhere until, quite frankly, until the bailout. The bailout is central to this campaign right now. Saxby Chambliss and Johnny Isakson, they took a risk and they linked up with Democrats. They joined the Democratic effort in the Senate to pass that $700 million rescue package, while all of Georgia's House members, all 7, voted against it. And that's created a terrific split in the Republican Party.
Very quickly, what could that race turn on? I want to ask both of you that question. The presidential race in Georgia.
Presidential race in Georgia, I think, is just going to be a matter of whether African Americans keep up their numbers, and quite frankly, voter fatigue among Republicans. The lines are going to be extremely long, and it's going to be a matter of whether these Republicans stay in there.
Quickly, Rob Christensen in the presidential contest in North Carolina, what's that going to turn on?
Turnout, turnout, turnout. We have early voting here, strong African-American turnout. Also a lot of young people. We have a lot of colleges and universities here. The metropolitan areas are going to be very strongly for Obama, and in the countryside, in the small towns and rural areas, it's going to be McCain country. But turnout is going to be the key.
Rob Christensen and Jim Galloway, we appreciate it. Thank you both.
And to the analysis of Shields and Brooks, syndicated columnist Mark Shields, New York Times columnist David Brooks. First, David, how do you read the importance of North Carolina, Georgia, and the other southern states, what we just heard?
Especially in the Senate, really important. If McCain starts losing those states in the presidential, he'll lose by a lot. But to me, two things are going on here. The one, which I associate a little more with Georgia, is that this is just a tough year for Republicans, and so they're going to be challenged in a lot of states they really shouldn't be challenged in. But then there's a second trend, which I associate more with North Carolina, which is really a long tectonic shift away from the Republican Party, especially in places like North Carolina, where, as we've heard, you've got the people moving from the north down in North Carolina, and then you've got the rise, especially around the Research Triangle area, of highly educated people and young people, and those people are fleeing the Republican Party in droves. And so I've spent a lot of time in North Carolina, and people had a sense the Democrats were going to do a lot better year upon year. I think they were surprised it's happening this year. They thought it might happen 4 years or 8 years from now, because there has been this long-term trend away from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party, because the Republicans are losing these sorts of people, highly educated people.
Yeah. And also the surge in the African-American vote as well.
The surge in the African-American vote is enormous. I do think, Jim, that the significance is more than just this election, because we've had a given of a solid South, really, for the past 40 years, that it's been the most reliable, dependable, and homogenous Republican.
Beginning with Richard Nixon.
Beginning with Richard Nixon, George Wallace in 1968, and then Nixon, but in the Wallace vote in 72. And so the Democrats have really not been competitive there. And I think that when any area of the country becomes more competitive, it's not only healthy for our politics, but it's very healthy for the two-party system. That Democrats now have to think in terms of the support of and the encouragement and the re-election of Democrats who are elected from that region, if they're going to in fact compete there in a real way.
Now, in a more overview question here, we're on a Friday before Tuesday's election. Much is being said, Mark, about how well the Barack Obama campaign has been run. How do you read that at this stage? Now, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but how well, just as a campaign?
Jim, there's a dirty little secret in the press, and that is this, that if you win, you're a genius.
Yeah.
If you lose, you're a bum.
It's not a secret anymore. You just told everybody.
I just told everybody. But I mean, you want to go through Hamilton Jordan being the greatest example. Hamilton Jordan was a very able political operative. The late Hamilton Jordan ran Jimmy Carter's campaign. One-term ex-governor of Georgia beats the face cards of the Democratic Party in 1976, steals the Democratic nomination, wins the White House. First Southerner since the Civil War to win the Democratic nomination for president. An achievement of just towering magnitude. 4 years later, Jimmy Carter is unelected president by Ronald Reagan, who carries 44 states. Now, Hamilton Jordan, what did he lose, 70 IQ points in those 4 years? No. I mean, it's just, it's part of the formula. Has it been a good campaign? It's been superb. It's been very disciplined. Every campaign is ultimately, inevitably, a mirror reflection of the candidate.
Forget consultants.
Candidate strengths and weaknesses are reflected in whom the candidate chooses to run the campaign, how the campaign's run. It's been disciplined. It's been harmonious. Winning campaigns are more harmonious than losing campaigns, which are civil wars and leper colony.
How do you read it, David?
Well, it has been a smoothly run campaign. The thing that strikes me about the campaign is how nice it is. I mean, they're not always accessible, especially with the candidate, but they are nice people. When in our business, you write something negative about a campaign and you get a call often the next day and they tell you you're a complete idiot. With the Obama campaign, they'll call you up and they'll say, you know, David, we love you. You're a great guy. We really respect your work. It's so sad that you're a complete idiot. And so they make you feel better about it while they deliver the message. And that niceness, I think, is a reflection from Obama. It's been a smoothly run campaign. They haven't taken a lot of chances, but they've made practically zero mistakes. Does that mean he'll be a great president? Not necessarily. I think the best campaign I've seen in recent history was the George Bush 2000 campaign, which I thought was a masterpiece of a campaign in a very hostile environment. Did it mean he turned out to be a great manager and president? Well, viewers can decide.
Yeah, but what about the people around Obama? They're the same people who were around him when it began, right? Does that mean something?
It does, and it means as somebody who came from the Clinton world and entered the Obama world, this person said to me, they're in it for all the right reasons, which is to say it's not a notch on their career to move up. They're in it because of Obama, and that's important. And I mean, from my point of view, they're moderate people. They're not flaky. Personally, they tend to be very even-tempered, and I think even ideologically, they tend to be moderate Democrats and not off on any fringe.
David Axelrod is about to go into the Cooperstown of political operatives, consultants. He's very good. He's been a major indispensable force.
His title is
chief strategist.
Chief strategist, former reporter for the Chicago Tribune.
Used to be, trusted senior advisor or whatever.
Right.
Okay, it's a quote unquote.
Yeah.
But David Axelrod worked for John Edwards in 2004. His genius was somehow not clearly as visible. In a losing campaign. Is David Axelrod good? Sure. But, there's a great Russian proverb that says, winning has a fragrance all its own.
The Russians said that?
Yeah, the Russians said that. And I think it's important to bear that in mind. It does have a fragrance. Boy, and you start to believe you get an IQ of 200 and you're 7 feet tall. But I do think that it's been David's point about them. They are the campaign itself. The people in it have never been taken with their self-importance. Contrast it with the Giuliani campaign, which was made Dale Carnegie's book look like required reading for everybody in politics. It was the most abrasive I've ever dealt with.
Another overview question, David. When you look back, this has been a very long campaign. Let's face it, almost 2 years for everybody concerned. Do you look back now and see some really turning points, major turning points that really caused this thing to happen, that we're now sitting here, John McCain versus Barack Obama 2 years later?
Right. I would say for McCain, it was the surge, the decision to do the surge and the success of the surge, which made him a viable candidate. That was the good one. And then the bad one, I think, was about the same time. The depths of the campaign, when they shook up the campaign, they got people who were more organized, but also more conventionally Republican. And I think he's run a more conventional campaign than he should have because of those people that surrounded him then. And that's why he picked Sarah Palin, because he's run a much more conventionally Republican campaign. So I think the key moments were way back then, which were sort of set in stone what would happen afterwards. For Barack Obama, I'd say it was the Jefferson-Jackson Day dinner in Iowa last winter where he discovered that voice, the hope message, which really electrified people for a long time. And then which set him off on the trajectory. And then I think it was in the middle of the Clinton fight where she ran that 3 a.m. ad. And he sort of shifted from hope and the effervescence and became much more reassuring and experienced. And became, I think, a much more prosaic candidate as a result. But I think those were the two trajectories. I do have to say about Obama, there are very few turning points. McCain has a lot of them. Obama, he's not a turning point kind of guy. It's just pretty steady.
What do you think, Mark?
Jim, first of all, nobody chooses the environment in which he runs. It was an unfriendly, unforgiving environment for John McCain. He was running at a time when he was seeking the third term, White House term for his party, a singularly unpopular president of his party, an unpopular war, a sluggish economy that turned into crisis. So, that's a factor beyond his control. So if John McCain runs close on Tuesday, I'm not making predictions, but I will make a prediction. If he does run close, he's done well in that sense. But the reality is the deck was stacked against him. I think the most important thing was he made a faulty decision at the outset to try and run a George Bush clone campaign, a big national campaign, a lot of money, big budget. And it came a cropper. It absolutely imploded. And at that point, John McCain returned to what John McCain had been. He became the John McCain of town meetings in New Hampshire. He went back. New Hampshire was his venue to rescue that campaign. And it was quite impressive. And he did it almost single-handedly. If John McCain had run...
But that was to get the nomination.
Yes. Yeah. If he had run the John McCain campaign of 2000, in 2008. The guy who took on tobacco, the guy who had taken on soft money, the guy who stood independently of his own party, who stood for middle-income tax cuts and low-income tax cuts, and wanted to make Social Security solvent, not to give money to tax cuts, as he put it, to the millionaires. I think John McCain would have been a far more competitive candidate. He became,
in the general election,
he became a far more conventional Republican, and as David pointed out. In Obama's case, Obama, I think, to his credit, understood the definition of leadership to me politically is that a leader know and understand himself or herself and know and understand the times in which he lives. Obama understood both. He always stayed within his own game in the sense of as a candidate. He was true to himself. He was cool. He was confident. He never tried to step outside of that
and be somebody else.
Be somebody else, and it served him very well, especially in the crisis. And finally, Jim, he was the anti-war candidate in an anti-war party. If Hillary Clinton had done what John Edwards done and changed her position on the war, she would have been very competitive, and he was gifted that she ran as an incumbent candidate, as a candidate who was ready in a year of change when people weren't looking for continuity.
Look, we're not in the prediction business here, but where does the race stand right now? I won't hold you to it.
It's tightened a little, but John McCain is behind in all the swing states by a little, and he would have to really win them all to win the presidency. So he's gotten some traction last week, I think, by calling Obama a liberal spender, but hasn't changed the momentum, basically.
The most admirable thing John McCain did was not to play the race card in this campaign, and for that he deserves some credit. He did some other things that he's not going to feel good about, but certainly not doing that. I think it's the over/under, I'd say, is 5 points, as they say in Las Vegas. I mean, I think he'll win by Obama will win the popular vote for somewhere between 4% and 5%, and I think his electoral college between 340 and 350.
Does that make sense to you?
I put a little higher. I actually think it's going to swing Obama's way a little more, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. I think it'll be a pretty convincing win. And
yeah, well, if that's the case, it'll truly be historic, because other than Franklin Roosevelt, only Lyndon Johnson, of all the Democrats ever elected, get more than 50.1%.
Absolutely, but I don't think the Democrats will get 60 votes in the Senate, which to me is right now the key thing. Yeah.
Okay, David, Mark, we'll see how wrong or right you are. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And now the first in an occasional series on climate change. We begin with a report on drought and trout in Montana. Our story is produced by Climate Central, a nonpartisan scientific research group. The reporter is Heidi Cullen, a climatologist and correspondent for the Weather Channel.
Montana, known for its big sky and its big trout. The skies are as stunning as ever, but all is not well with Montana's trout population. Warmer temperatures are setting off a series of interconnected changes that are affecting Montana. But we begin with the trout. Scientists project that increasing temperatures in the coming decades could cause significant reductions in trout habitat in Montana, placing the more than $300 million fishing industry in jeopardy.
I started guiding out of West Yellowstone in 1980.
Craig Matthews is a well-known fishing guide and owner of Blue Ribbon Flies in West Yellowstone.
The changes I've seen in the 30 years that I've been here, I've seen a lot of sedimentation in the streams. I've seen lower water, particularly the last 10 or 12 years.
The summer drought season in Montana has grown longer.
This is the West Fork, and we have a tailwater which kicks out some cool water in the summer that helps with the fishery.
Jenny West is a fishing guide on the Bitterroot River near Missoula. She's been fishing the Bitterroot since she was 12 years old.
The key is July. If July is dry, then we have a pretty big drought.
In addition to the long summer drought, the winter snowpack is melting earlier.
And the big trend that we've identified in the last 50 years is that we're getting a bit less snow, and it's starting to melt on the order of 2 or 3 weeks earlier.
Steve Running is a professor of ecology at the University of Montana in Missoula and a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was co-recipient of the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize.
Trout are what we call simply a cold water species. And so a trout literally dies at water temperatures above about 78 degrees. It's pretty easy to warm up water above 78 degrees if it's just standing still. And so what keeps our water temperatures cool is that snow melt out of the mountains continuing to flow down through our rivers. As our rivers run out of flow and you're left with just sitting pools of water, that 78-degree threshold for trout mortality gets pretty easy to attain.
Running calculates that March temperatures in Montana have risen 5 to 7 degrees since the 1950s. As the graph shows, there is natural climate variability, and some years are cooler and wetter, like this year. But the upward trend is unmistakable, a trend that scientists say is consistent with global warming.
The final ramification of that is that our late summer stream flows in July and August are just dwindling to lower and lower stream flows. And that's really going to ultimately impact our trout populations and our fishing and tourism.
In Montana, that's especially true because water is so integral to the economy.
It doesn't matter whether someone's actually, dipping a line in the water and catching a fish. It's the restaurant meal, equipment, guide, and the hotel room. There's all that ripple effect.
As mayor of Missoula, John Engen knows that healthy fish fuel a whole network of economic relationships that local populations depend on.
If you think of the trout in this stream as the canary in the coal mine, if this stream isn't healthy, if it can't support this iconic species of fish and its varieties, can this place support another iconic species, which is the independent Westerner?
Another effect of warmer, drier conditions is increased wildfires.
Wildfire rates are going up dramatically. Insect epidemics are going up dramatically.
Fewer sub-zero days in winter allow the voracious pine bark beetles, normally killed off by the winter freeze, to survive into another season. More beetles means more dead timber, making that timber even more combustible, more susceptible to forest fires.
Our economy is affected by drought, mostly in terms of fire and the toll that fire takes on our collective resources in this state.
Droughts have been very much a part of the western United States as far back as we can tell.
Roger Pilkey Sr. is an atmospheric scientist at the University of Colorado in Boulder and has studied drought in the West. Whereas many scientists see the climate of the West shifting toward almost permanent summer drought, Pilkey is reluctant to link drought to man-made changes in climate. He sees the looming water crisis as one result of population growth.
Multi-decade-long droughts have occurred in the past, so regardless of how climates change because of human activity, we have to adapt and we have to mitigate as much as possible to try to reduce their impacts.
Across Montana, one key adaptation strategy involves finding new ways to use available water more efficiently. But there are competing claims for that water. As they like to say out here, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
We need to really start protecting not only the value of the water, but protection of the use of that water for agriculture.
Walt Sales is a fourth-generation farmer in the Gallatin Valley near Bozeman. Agriculture contributes $2.4 billion a year to Montana's economy. But over the last decade, less snowmelt in the state has reduced stream flow at the time when farmers and trout need it most. Sales values his water rights, but also understands the need to find balance with fishermen.
We really like to see people enjoy our natural resources, but we also want that respect, knowing that this is somebody's property and it's a gift to the people of the state. And hopefully that will carry over with the recreationalists and others, and it has.
However, Professor Running suggests the conflict is more pronounced than either side lets on.
This is a real tug-of-war between the recreationalists wanting water in the river and the landowners that are trying to grow crops to make a livelihood. And yet, we don't have enough spare water to do both. So the day's going to come in 20, 30, 40 years where there's going to have to be less irrigation of crops in order to keep water in the streams. And those landowners will have to go to dry land farming, and I'm sure someone is going to have to compensate them for giving up water rights. It's going to be contentious.
The competition for water could get even more contentious if coal-to-liquids technology, which converts coal to diesel fuel, takes off. Montana has 24% of the nation's coal reserves, and Governor Schweitzer has been a proponent of coal-to-liquids, emphasizing the economic benefits and downplaying the fact that it is a water-intensive process.
We've announced a coal-to-liquid plant that will be built on the Crow Reservation. That single plant that will employ 2,000 people will use about as much water as a project that has a couple of thousand acres of alfalfa, which would employ 3 or 4 people.
Governor Schweitzer has allied himself with other Western governors, signing the Western Climate Initiative.
Solve it, and we help free America from its addiction to foreign oil.
It calls for a 15% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 and an increased use of alternative energy.
Bottom line, coal has a CO2 problem. And until we recognize and we begin mitigating that CO2 problem, coal could be the energy of the past.
Montana is also looking to capitalize on its abundant renewable energy sources, none larger than wind. The strong, steady winds here have the potential to meet the electricity needs of these 19 states. So Montana is hoping for energy independence and economic growth, but not without legislative hiccups.
Change is difficult for people. Fundamentally, change scares people.
Still, Montanans like Jenny West and Craig Matthews remain optimistic.
I hope that I can tell my grandkids someday that, you know, this is what it's like, and it's been this way forever. Oh, there he is, yes, woo! You know, this is my life, this is my passion, and I want to be outside as much as I can, and my business is counting on it.
If we lose trout fishing, we lose the headwaters of such great rivers as the Missouri and the Yellowstone, and we lose those very wild places that trout inhabit. And it's such a rich tradition, wild trout in wild places.
People from Montana call their state the last best place, and they cherish their big sky and their big trout. But they also recognize that the climate is changing, and so they're pursuing ways to adapt and to reduce. Some Montanans even say they're setting an example for other states to follow.
There's more online about climate change, including projections for Montana up to the year 2100. Visit us at pbs.org, where you can find a link on our website to Climate Central. Finally tonight, a tribute to author Studs Terkel, who, among many other things, did essays here on the NewsHour early on. Ray Suarez interviewed him in 2003 about his book, Hope Dies Last, and he asked him why he kept on writing.
When someone says, when are you going to retire? I say, when you say that, smile. No, I check out while I'm working. For example, wouldn't it be dramatic if I were to check out? I'm 91 years old, right? I've had a pretty good run of it. If I were to check out right now, there'd be pretty good headlines tomorrow. Pretty good make the show. See?
Well, definitely. You'd be the lead, I think.
But the point is, I have an epitaph all set for me. Curiosity did not kill this cat. And basically, that's what it is. I'm curious. Do I have diminished hopes to some extent? Yes, I do. My hopes diminish many times. But I'm quoting an old English journalist friend of mine, Jimmy Cameron, who said, my hopes have diminished, but my curiosity remains.
Another of Terkel's books will be released next month. He died today at age 96. And again, the other major developments of the day. Stocks finished on a high note. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 144 points, but it still recorded its worst month since 1987. And the presidential candidates headed into the final weekend of the campaign. Washington Week can be seen later this evening on most PBS stations. We'll see you online and again here Monday evening. Have a nice weekend. I'm Jim Lara. Thank you and good night.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer is provided by
With hard work and careful planning, Pacific Life can help you retire the way you want to. With mutual funds and life insurance, and with annuities that can guarantee an income for the rest of your life. Your financial professional and Pacific Life can help you reach your retirement goals. Pacific Life, the power to help you succeed.
With soaring energy prices and global climate change, there are good reasons for believing in wind. Wind energy is clean and plentiful, and it answers the call for sustainable ways to create the electricity we need. We know because our soulful...
The one name to remember, Pacific Office Automation.
I'm Rick Dancer, and this is my wife, Kathy. In my 23 years as a journalist, one thing I've heard over and again from voters is why can't campaigns focus on issues, not negative attacks? That's why we're committed to a clean race that focuses on making the Secretary of State's office nonpartisan, supporting campaign finance reform, stopping the commingling of political funds, and ensuring that only legal citizens vote in Oregon. Throughout our travels in Oregon, this is what people have told us Oregon needs in a Secretary of State. I'm Rick Dancer, and I'm asking for your vote.
Make your commute easier with K2's Traffic Tracker. Weekday mornings from 5 to 7 on K2 News, plus updates during Good Morning America. K2's Traffic Tracker is brought to you by Town & Country Dealerships. Drive home happy.
Halloween is just around the corner, but so are the terrific savings at Bi-Mart. The trick is having enough treats, so stock up. You'll find all your favorites and some for the kids, too. This year, treat yourself to terrific savings at Bi-Mart, just right for Halloween.
In tough times like these, do we want to give more power to Wall Street and big corporations? Measure 64 would do just that. Bill Sizemore put a loophole in 64 that would increase the power of lobbyists and corporate special interests, while hurting the people we trust and depend on the most. Measure 64 would silence the voices of our nurses, firefighters, and teachers, but let Wall Street banks and lobbyists off the hook. Say no to Bill Sizemore's deceptive corporate loophole. Vote no on Measure 64.
K2 News, first at 4, weekday afternoons.